welcome back to another extended edition of the Road Captain's Quarters with Bikerson the Beer Man. Today's subject is where'd they go? Keeping your formation together. Let's get into it. This is what the TikTok conversation looked like. The most embarrassing thing that can happen to a road captain on a ride is turning around and suddenly realizing you have nobody behind you. And that's why God allowed for the invention of mirrors, so you'd have some way of knowing you're not alone in the world. All right, so a little bit of war story time here. So I'm fortunate enough that I've never had this happen to me as a road captain. I'm a truck driver by trade, so I'm pretty obsessive about watching my mirrors anyway. Even more so when I know that I have a bunch of people following me that I'm responsible for. But I digress. So one of the worst examples, I was on a ride where a couple of guys in the formation knew where we were going. It was a place they were really familiar with. I wasn't as familiar with where we were going, so I agreed to let this individual and his sidekick take the front row, and I took the second row. Anyway, long story short, we get going down the road, and someone in the third row, only 2 rows behind the road captain and his sidekick, we'll call him Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, starts having mechanical problems with his bike. He didn't quit running, but he couldn't maintain speed. So he started falling behind. So Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, they're oblivious. For 5 miles, their formation just keeps falling further and further and further behind as we basically keep everybody else together. And pretty much we finally found a place to pull off and address the mechanical issues that was going on with this individual's bike. And one of the other guys sped off and basically went to catch up with these guys. You're talking, by the time they realized they didn't have a formation, 7-8 miles. I mean, that's insane. They literally never checked their mirrors one time in like 8 miles to make sure that no one was falling behind. And of course, just dumbfounded to find out that their formation wasn't behind them. When somebody finally caught up to them, got their attention, was like, hey, are you missing anything? So, when you're out there on the road, you've absolutely got to be watching. You want to be watching your mirrors. You want to make sure your entire formation makes it through the intersection. You should be watching to make sure none of them got hemmed up by a red light. You want to make sure nobody behind you got pulled over by the cops. You want to make sure no one behind you is broke down. I remember one ride I was leading where cruising down the road, and suddenly I realized that when I looked at my mirror that the formation was falling back from me, and continued to watch, and they all moved to the side of the road and parked their bikes, so I knew something was up. So I figured somebody was broke down. I spun around, went back, and someone had actually wrecked their bike out. We ended up having to get an ambulance to tend to the injuries that their passenger had. So you got to pay attention. You got to use the mirrors. And we preach the same thing to the truck drivers that are coming into the industry that aren't being taught to watch their mirrors for whatever reason. So anyway, folks, that's the end of the sermon. If you're going to go out and you're going to road captain, one of the most basic things you got to do is make sure that you're guiding the formation, that the formation's with you, that they're staying together, and you're there to guide them safely to the next point. And if someone breaks down or whatever the case is, if there's some reason that everybody needs to stop, then everybody needs to stop, and you should definitely be on top of the fact that people are stopping. Anyway, I'm Bikerson the Beer Man. Follow me for good beer and good times, and share so your friends can meet you there.